So this is the joystick repair for the Cat 252B joystick repair. I got ahead of myself here for making the video because I didn't know what the hell I was doing, and it was impossible for me to be recording and trying to figure out how this thing was put together. So I took it apart already and I put it back together, almost the whole thing. And then I decided to make this video to explain it to you. So to remove this thing, you take off these Torx screws. I put it back together so I would not lose these nuts or any of the screws, because these nuts fall out, so you got to watch out for that. So you use the Torx screw to take this apart, and it's wrapped around a couple of times and it's in there. But to remove these bullet plungers, you turn this with a pipe wrench and this thing comes off. It has some washers in there that are very thin. What they are really is spacers so that it tightens in the correct position. When they put it together at the factory, they wanted it to have the correct orientation when it's put together so that it doesn't end up backwards or whatever. So they use these spacer washers to create that correct orientation. So I'm gonna stick it in here like this. We must not forget that it has those washers in it when we pull it up to put it back in, so we don't lose the washers. And then this plate comes up, and in some cases the whole thing might pop up when you remove the plate, so you need to watch that they don't pop up and fly all over the place, because they do have springs. Before removing these, you might want to clean this up. It was a bloody mess. I sprayed it with parts cleaner and cleaned it up before removing these. It'll make your job a lot better. What I did to take this off was just grabbed onto this and moved it around. You got to keep it under control. Don't just yank up, because then it'll come out all of a sudden, and there is a spring in there. So you got to work it out, but keep your arm under control so that it doesn't all of a sudden yank out. What I did was I had a helper hold on to this. There's a spring in there somewhere. Is this one missing it or what? This one had an additional spring inside of here, and this one does not. Shaggy, deténle aquí el dedo. The best thing about this is that I have my super awesome helpers. This is Shaggy and this is George. They're the true engineers of this job. This is the piece we took out of there. When you remove this piece, the bullet, there's a ring inside of there. It's not an O-ring, it's squared, but I'm gonna replace it with a O-ring. I'll give you the measurements and specs in a little while for what I used, and I don't know if it's gonna work, but I will update you later if it does or does not. In the meantime, I'm gonna save the old one, and I am going to see if I could find the old one while I run the machine with the ones I'm gonna put in there today. Hopefully they'll work. Maybe I should have tried it on just one. And here we go. It does have an offset in it. It goes towards the bottom. that indentation, that offset, if you do happen to replace, if you find the right ones. I'm gonna replace it with an O-ring for now, as I said, but this is what the one it came with. Okay, so I have one of these cheap Harbor Freight O-ring kits. That is what I had at hand, so that's what I'm gonna use for now. It's I live in a small town in Mexico, and that's where I'm doing this work. And the very bottom one here is 110. Okay, I have this upside down. The very bottom one here specifies 110, and this is the size that it is. 3/8, 9/16 outside diameter, and it's 3/32 thick. So that's the size that I ended up using from this Harbor Freight junky set that says it is nitrile rubber construction, which I think is a piece of crap anyway, and I wouldn't recommend it, but like I said, this is what I have at hand. So I'm gonna stick this O-ring in the groove there. It shouldn't be that hard once you get one end in. There we go. It's going into its place. And it's completely in. Dun, dun, dun. This is the bullet that it had in there. It goes right in. It works. I think it should stop the leak for a little while. But like I said, in the meantime, I'm gonna contact some hydraulic parts places and see if I could get this original, just in case I need it. It must be very cheap if I do find it, a few bucks. So now I have my handy helper here plugging up the hole in the meantime. I'm just gonna cram this one back in there. And like I said, the other one had a spring in here and this one does not. I don't know if somebody previously took it apart and lost it or what. But this front one had another spring inside of here. Okay, quítale el hule. And there we go. I just pushed it in there and it stays in there. There's the mechanism. It works. It has an O-ring in it. This one was not leaking to begin with. These three were. So here we go. I'm gonna... Ay, cabrón, traes las manos bien mojadas de aceite. Ten. Bien secas las dos. Deja el plástico. Ok. Graba así, no de muy lejos, así como de cerca es lo que estoy haciendo aquí. So I'm gonna remove this, being careful not to yank it all the way up because springs might come out of it. This one does have a spring in it. a little other piece also. So maybe it's because they're the drive components. This one and this one makes the machine drive. These make it turn. Beats me. But this one had a spring, this one has a spring, this one did not. I don't know about that one. A ver, a luz sale acá. Yes, and I should probably change these O-rings too. But I don't mind taking this apart quite a few times once I have it figured out how it's done. So I'm just learning about this from now. I will do a better job next time. I want to change these, but I want to make sure I get some high quality. I'm gonna see if I could get a high quality set of O-rings. So I'll take out the bullet. You know, I'm gonna leave this one alone for now. And I'm gonna put the whole damn thing back together. The one that was leaking the most was the front one. Y a este no le salió tanto aceite. Le salió nomás poquito. And just for the fuck of it, I'm gonna check if this one has a spring in it. This one does not have a spring in it. So that's weird. The front one had a spring in it. This one has a spring in it. It has other springs down there also, but a spring inside the bullet itself. These two have springs and these do not. That's weird. Well, I am gonna clean this up and put it back together. I'm not gonna replace this one yet because I don't know if these O-rings are really gonna work or not. So I'll take it apart as many times as necessary so as not to pay 400 bucks for a full kit. Cat wants 200 bucks for a set of two, a kit of two. So I would need to buy two of those sets. It would be 400 bucks for the kit to fix these. And I'm not willing to do it. This had 3 screws in it that I think it was not necessary to take them off, but I didn't know that at the time. So I took these off with a quarter-inch Allen wrench or something like that. Maybe 3/16. I didn't record when I was putting it back together, but after putting these things back in there, this plate goes on there, and this thing screws on to hold this plate down, and then this thing goes on with the torque screws that it has on there. The boot was in pretty bad shape, so I didn't put it back on. I'm going to San Antonio, Texas in a few weeks, and I'm gonna buy a couple of new boots because both of these are in bad shape. But it's been a few days. I have moved the skid loader a bit, and it's perfectly dry. These two are the ones that I put O-rings on. This one I did not. This front one was leaking really bad. This one just gets a little bit wet, and that one I did not change either. But there we go. It's been 3 days.